a dreary April day here in
Ah,
Nebraska. I think I've gotten three different warnings. One, we have a fire warning,
mm.
wind advisory warning, and I don't know, cats flying through the air. Now, for those of you uninitiated, the wind advisories in Nebraska are not like what the rest of you all are used to. Now, maybe in Texas you guys have real wind and Wyoming has real wind, but here
No.
we wind has a running start all the way through Colorado, all the way through the Panhandle, and then it hits us, and then it hits Missouri and all their trees and slows down. So when we have a wind advisory in Nebraska, it's like hurricane force. And
Yeah.
it's just it'll be a clear day, but you don't go outside. You just hear your
Yeah.
whole home rattle.
Yeah. So the Midwest and out there on the plains, they have a different sort of what's the is an anometer? Is that what it's called? Something that measures wind. They use a chain.
We
All
use a
right, they use a
chain.
chain attached to a pole, and the degrees at which the chain is standing, away from the pole indicates the wind speed. Now there is usually a standard disclaimer on those, and if the chain is flat against the pole, you need to call the meteorologist because it's broken. Okay, anyway,
Oh,
there you go.
yes. We use that joke often out here. And a friend of mine was from my roommate in college was from Wyoming, and it would be like a 40-mile-an-hour gust would hit us as we were walking to class, and people would be complaining about how windy it was, and we'd look at you and be like, "You notice anything?" Ah.
Yep.
So, anyways, we're in April here, and according to my schedule, we need to talk about educational institutions. Now, I notice the attendance is lower today. I'm wondering, is that
Yeah,
because it's April, or is that because not as many people care about serving schools?
I wonder. I wonder.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out. We usually have quite a few, but now I'd say we're about
Yeah.
half attendance, maybe.
Yeah. And to qualify the educational, I know some people can look at that and say, there's not a lot of money there, or schools don't have, big budgets. And yes, there are money constraints, but don't be fooled. There is a lot of money in education, both public and private. They have various funding sources, so you're going to need to, kind of get in the loop on that. You don't have to understand all the details. Adam and I talk about E-rate sometimes, and I know some people very, very wisely, all right, some people very, very wisely avoid E-rate like the plague.
A lot of
Okay.
paperwork.
It is its own, ball of mess. But it is one of the funding things in the US that allows you to tap into that market. But the thing is, worldwide education is important to at least some degree in just about every one of our civilizations. So, being able to tap into this and get plugged into this, and it is a little bit different. It's not like the little, private business down the road who's got a normal budget, a normal revenue stream. You do have to change the way you think about things, but your ability to one would be willing to do that, but two, not go in with a lot of fear that, oh, I'm going to have to become an education finance expert. Again, no, there, trust me, you have direct access to an education finance expert. All right. Those people are in the schools that you're trying to sell to. They know exactly how their finances work. You just need to interface with them. They can answer some of the complex and convoluted issues, what forms have to be done, this and that. That can all be helped out. But anyway, a long little rant on education can be a very profitable vertical in your business if you want to go down this path.
Yeah, I think it's overlooked. A lot of nonprofits in general are overlooked because they're cash flow poor.
Yes.
So this is a very important thing for you guys all to realize. And this is why I put in the email over here. I got my little reminders. Grants are important. So grant driven businesses behave differently than what you're used to. So most companies have like a monthly budget that they observe. And so it's like they're going to get cash in, cash out every month. Electrical utilities, customers are paying. it's good to familiarize yourself with how the cash flow works in a company. But with schools, it's different. It's like lump sums. Sometimes they'll get especially with private schools, they'll get a lump sum at the beginning of the semester, and sometimes they'll get payments throughout the year, depending on how they price their plans. But usually, all that money goes towards school administration, like teachers, principals, janitors, keeping the lights on, paying for trips and little things, keeping the bus running. Those things that are they have to have those critical expenditures. They're usually fixed, and that's how they charge. They have some variable expenditures, but very few. Now, for the variable expenditures, a lot of times they will use grants or they'll think in terms of projects. So you'll see a school who wouldn't give you the time of day to fix their computers suddenly have $300,000 to spend all at once because they're dealing with outside sourced revenue. So grant programs, donors, like somebody knows that their granddaughter is going to this elementary school and she doesn't get a cool Chromebook like everybody else. And they're like, well, why don't they get Chromebooks? And they talk to the principal, and the principal says, well, we've never had the funding for a Chromebook program. It takes about $20,000 to get one started. And then we have to worry about charging the parents for it year after year. And the grandparent could be like, well, how about I give you a couple $100,000 to kick that off? And the principal's like, all of a sudden they have all this cash in their hand.
All of a sudden they do.
I need to find somebody to help me build a Chromebook program like I promised. And that's kind of the hot seat a principal is in or a teacher is in, is because suddenly some rich person decides to solve this problem. Or some, with a thing of E-rate, they can count on E-rate every year. So that can go up to 70%, I think, or is it 80% of the cost of network devices gets covered by a federal program.
Right. And so to offer a little more color on like E-rate here in the US, and what Adam was talking about, those numbers are all over the place. There's a lot that goes into that, and it is one of those hairy messes. But so I worked with the school district in Presidio. All right. Presidio likes to show up in movies every once in a while, so you may have heard of it. It's a really southern part in Texas. It is an extremely poor county in Texas, and it's one of the poorest counties overall. And a reflection of that is their IT support team. It was a very small team, great people. I loved working with them, but they had the minimalist of salaries out there where they're at. However, this is, a decade old information, but at one point, Presidio had such a prevalent IT infrastructure that the school district offered free Wi-Fi internet access to the entire community of Presidio because really small community. We installed such a massive wireless infrastructure in their schools that it bled over into almost the entire community. So how did Presidio, one of the poorest school districts in Texas, end up spending over a 4 or 5 year period several $1 million on technology? They tapped into some other funds. So that's my big case scenario, and those exist different communities, different country, and government sort of deals. Those opportunities are out there, and kind of back to what I said earlier, you don't have to necessarily know what those opportunities are. Go talk to your education providers. They know what they are, and they know the likelihood that they'll be able to get those deals. Collaborate with them and work on that.
This is the same thing we talk about with all your clients. Understand where their revenue is coming from. You don't need to understand their revenue streams. They do. They already know all this stuff. So in my case studies, I talk about small private schools, and I was able to look at a small private school of like 200 students. Not a big school. Just a small elementary school. And because it was a Lutheran school, they're part of a synod. They're part of a district, and they all get overseen by the same superintendent. And so these districts can often be an opportunity for MSPs to do a buying pool. So you may not get a lot of work out of a 200 child school, But what if there were 20 to 40 schools in the
Yes.
district?
Yes.
Now you're looking at a pool, and you can manage that pool in the way you want, distribute it as a WAN, and you deal with it in a larger setting. Now you have 2,000 to 10,000 students that you're serving across a
Mhm.
wide area. And so the purchase pool there is fantastic. And that's what I did for one of my first job from one of my first VCI clients is I was coordinating with the district office to try to figure out how to get more Google Classroom, more Chromebooks to all these schools. And if they could do that, they could then share resources so that if they had one Spanish teacher at one school, they would teach a number of the schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a common thing out here in the Midwest where we have towns that are far apart and don't have the richest schools. They'll share teachers. And if the teacher can teach from their current classroom, they can virtually cast into any other classroom and it can just be proctored by somebody who does not have a necessarily teaching license. And it's a big deal for these private schools.
And schools in general. So if you kind of, a little compare and contrast, you think about businesses and in, more geographically bounded areas. If you're talking to one business and they're offering, a product, they really want to, compete, and they want the competitive advantage over a similar business offering a similar product. And so they don't want to share information. They're not going to, really do anything that might help one of these other businesses. All right. Education is totally different. All right. These people are all about collaborating. And you might say, hey, yeah, I know there's, 20 schools within, 50 miles of me that might fall into this category, but I don't know but one of these people. One is all you need. All right. You can get in one and they will be more than happy to leverage, to share information, to make referrals. If you go through any sort of or MSP marketing, there's always a big segment about referrals, and getting in with the educational environment will quickly open up other opportunities that you might not have had any sort of relationships with. And like Adam was saying, sometimes it's just that one little connection that you find, a resource that's being shared to another school or even another school district. And all of a sudden now you have the opportunity to check with them. And again, they love sharing information. They love collaborating back and forth, and you can build these bigger opportunities or leverage the relationships.
Yep. So you have to think about this, like, and work with like the superintendent or principal. Richard, you said you were talking to you have a member of a school board.
Yeah.
Fantastic opportunity there. So you talk to them, and remember, their problems are just like your business. Like, you have all these great ideas, but you don't have enough people to put energy into them. You know that if you had somebody put energy into project X, it would make you money, but you're busy doing 5 other things during the day.
Mhm.
And so with schools, it's the same thing. They know the opportunity to use more technologies out there. They don't have the time to dedicate to thinking it through and applying to the grant. So an example here is I know there is one foundation here locally that has a lot of money. Now, they won't give to a single school, but their core donors give to education. It's one of the, you look at these grant in these foundations and they'll have listed on their site, they're looking for this kind of entity to donate towards. Maybe it's underprivileged youth. Maybe it's private schools with a focus on Lutheran education. You can find them there that specific. And usually your schools or your school boards will know exactly who they are.
Yep.
And because they know they know where to beg for money, but they don't know how to scope a project. They know that this foundation just gave $10 million. This local one just gave $10 million to a university to expand their science program. Asking them for $500,000 to expand a technology program in Nebraska, that's pennies to them.
It is.
Now, the schools don't know how to explain the technology benefits. You do. So when you're talking to the board member, or the principal, or you're talking to whoever it is, you got to understand they are asking for grants. They'll be like, oh yeah, I know that this foundation focuses on technology and education. We just never really had a good ask. We would like some more. We got some smart
Mhm.
boards from them a couple years ago, but we've never really had any good asks. I can look at the list of people here on this call, and I can tell you there's not one of you who wouldn't be able to think, well, they've got money. And you can think
Yep.
of 60 different things that would benefit an educational institution. That's where you go into a SWOT exercise, a SWOT workshop.
Hmm.
Say, where are you weak on technology? Let's figure things out. Let's map it through. And then they may not know things about VR classrooms or how to effectively use Chromebooks. They know other schools are using them, but they just haven't done it yet. They're kind of behind on that. Maybe they need to know a little bit more about the current state of programming classes and for youth. Those have come a long ways, or robotics programs for youth, or 3D printers. All these things are great. And the public schools, a lot of times, have all access to this, but the
Yep.
private schools don't because they've traditionally been too poor to buy them. But you can walk in the door as a hero and show them where they can be.
Yep.
So the second and third things we need to talk about real quick is one, okay, get to know grants, as we said. But two, understand that these changes have to happen in the summer. So usually the grants come out in the spring and the fall. So you can, if you have not worked with educational institutions before, you can go in and plan out a workshop for this summer to do a discovery of where the technology portfolio is for your small schools, and then use that workshop this summer to plan out next summer, because in the fall they're going to ask for cash from their foundations. Say, hey, we have this great project. We want to lead the edge on virtual blah, or we want to upgrade to gig internet so we can now live stream rocket launches, whatever it is.
Yep.
And that way you can expand programs and you can hit the criteria for the foundations in the fall and the spring. Then next summer, you're going to implement all this stuff and do another workshop to discover the gaps, and you're going to keep this rolling year after year. So
This is a really important element. So some of this is a little bit out of what you might consider your normal sort of processes with schools, and it is different. But overall, I would say it is not incredibly hard. It is maybe even a little bit easier than some just business sort of interactions. But here's the one trait about it that is going to be very different than most of your commercial business sort of reactions. The cycles are going to be much longer. So you are going to have to get in this rolling process, like Adam's talking about here, way ahead. If you're trying to get money right now from a school district, you're not going to get anything. All right. It is always going to be a 6-month lead, maybe a year lead. But now's the time to get that ball rolling. And the great thing about this is once you get that rolling, it is a lot easier to get those in. So, this is definitely a bit of a maturity and, a strategy perspective for your business to look a lot longer down the road here, but realize some really, really nice high margin gains that you can set up for next year and the following years after that.
and I think that's why a lot of MSPs give up on schools, is because they want the instant buy. They're used to small
They want the
business
instant. Yeah.
buying in and within like a 90-day window. But with schools, the payoff's big. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge payoff, but you've got to put the time in, and then over like the next 10 years, you've got this cash cow sitting there because you know that you've had to hire a grant writer to kind of support this. And then that every spring you get your paperwork going for E-rate. And while you're doing that, you do your asks for Chromebooks and blah, blah, blah. And you know that you're going to file with Sherry down at the foundation, and you're going to do your next ask. You're going to coordinate with the principals, but you're getting $100,000 projects. You're getting $300,000 projects, and they're just rolling like that.
Yep.
So, and in the summers, your summers are full of these projects and these rollouts, and it's great. Maybe you'll do this school this year, and then next year in 2023 you'll do the next like 10 schools. 2024 you'll do another 10 schools. You can get a lot of clients this way, and then you have a team dedicated to education. They know exactly what they're going to do and when. And so that's how you get into the school administrator mindset, is that they're not thinking cash flow. They're not thinking, oh, I'm going to throw $4,000 a month into a MSP contract on a whim. No, that's a teacher's salary right there.
No.
Do they hire a
Yep.
teacher or do they hire you? They're going to hire a teacher.
Every time.
So what you need to do is you need to think in terms of projects. You need to think almost going reverse of what we've talked about in the past. Move back into
Yep.
break fix and be like, okay, we're going to move into projects and we're going to map this out and deliver these projects to you. And then as you generate more revenue, we would like to see you throw X dollars a month at us to maintain it over time. And so then that grant is now covering your annual costs. It's just
Yep.
doing it all at once. So you're getting that $2,000 a month contract. You're getting a $24,000 payout every January or every March, whenever the foundation matures. And then you'll spend the summer doing all your project work, and then the next year you'll do the same thing, and you just keep doing that over and over again. It's very, very routine. So
Now,
great
we- we've
cash.
talked we've talked about some big numbers here, and I know maybe some of our smaller MSPs, you look at that and go, I don't have the staff. I can't do a $500,000 project. That's too much work. All right. Now, that can pose some other challenges, but education is another area where you can leverage your most senior skill sets. All right. Your people that have the high-end certification, that have the rarefied sort of skills to do these specialized things. One, you can sell the hardware. All right. Two, you can do the high level work. But when it comes to a lot of that rolling the things out sort of deal, this is where the school districts are looking to save some money. All right. They obviously they don't mind spending some of this, but they're always thinking about saving money. And you say, we can hire a team of people to go do cabling terminations, or our deal was rolling phones out back when IP phones were dealing, and just the time it took to send someone and put a phone on a desk and do all that work. We rolled that up into a separate line item on the project, and then we left it as an option for the school districts, because this was a lower technical function that their IT teams could do. Maybe they would have some interns or summer project where they would bring students in, and it would be this hands-on technology sort of training deal. And so we would actually partner with them for a lot of the more manual labor, and we didn't really have to work with it. All we had to do was utilize our in-house high-level techs to do what they really do, get the margin for those techs that we really needed, and a chunk of that. Now, there's money we could have made, but sometimes it's not worth making it for the manual stuff. And again, we're partnering with the school districts. They feel like they're collaborating. We do get a situation sometimes with these internal technology groups. They like to try to do things all themselves, even though they might not have the skill set. And when you allow them to do some of it, they feel like they're a part of the project, and you get a lot more buy-in and process improvement there as you're going forward. So there are lots of ways to tackle these big projects, even if you're a rather smaller MSP. Don't let the price tags scare you away in that, that project's too big for me. It may very well not.
Yep. And because it's all about the donor base. So that's basically what you need to know about education. The reason we talk about it in April every year is because it's common for us to start, for those of you with educational customers, start planning out your projects. Put that in the project management tool, the project roadmap tool. Put those projects down and block out that summer on your calendars for those of you with educational customers. You want to do that in April. Summer is just around the corner. In 3 months, you're going to be kicking off June, July, when you're going to want to do all of this work. And so you want to make sure your engineers are freed up for that. For those of you wanting to get into the educational market, now's the time when schools are thinking about grants and they're thinking about how to do their asks, and you need to be at top of mind for them. So you reach out to our principal. The grant programs for technology and stuff, top of mind right now. They'll also be top of mind in the fall. But this is our service quarter. We're talking about how to deliver better for clients. And so, how do you deliver services for schools? Now is the time when they're thinking about it. Now is the time when they're thinking about upgrading or adding more on. They've had a long year. They've had a long remote couple years.
Yeah.
People are looking at major changes to how they deliver education. Some are just hoping to get back to the normal, the way they used to do it pre 2020. Some are looking at ways of how do we adjust long term to allow for remote education. You need to be top of mind. If you guys want to make a difference, call up your principals, call up your board members, call up your educational contacts and say, hey, can I get some time to talk through how can we help?
Yep.
And with that, next week we flip the coin and we talk about fiscal year budget cycle customers. All those customers like governments and stuff that are going to start planning their budgets right now. And some of them are finalizing their budgets and doing their asks right now. So depending on where you are in the world, the fiscal year affects you differently. So we plan on talking about fiscal year workshops, budgeting, and how to get yourself in with some of those maybe government contracts, or getting yourself in with a lot of those people who are kicking off their new budget in July. And they're weird, but they're very exciting because it kind of splits up our year a little bit. So we'll talk about that next week. We'll get kind of the same points of like, how do you talk to these people? How do you plan for them? How do you win them over? And what projects are they looking for?
That's it.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week.